Hi everyone, in this video we are going to show you the structures and functions of the blood, the heart, and the blood vessels that is also significant for human life. All the substances within the human body, blood is the most familiar one, as we have all had an injury which involves bleeding. For a long time, it is not exactly well understood what blood is or what it does. We just know that if we lose a lot of it, we die. But we now have an intimate understanding of this fluid, as well as circulatory system, whose function to continuously pump the blood around the body. But first, let's examine blood itself and what it's made of, and why it's so critical for human life. Let's mention that blood is technically considered a connective tissue, and such it is the only fluid tissue in the body, full of fibrous proteins, and it is comprised of four elements, which are the blood cells suspended in the fluid called plasma. If we place blood in the centrifuge, it will separate its components. The dense section is comprised of erythrocytes, or the red blood cells. In the less dense section will be the yellowish plasma. They are separated by the buffy coat, a white layer, containing platelets as well as leukocytes, otherwise known as blood cells. As a whole, blood is responsible for distributing various substances around the body, and most notably oxygen, which we can survive very long without it. But it also carrying nutrients absorbed from the digestive tract and hormones secreted by endocrine organs. Blood also delivered waste product to the organs that would dispose, then like the carbon dioxide that we exhale. Beyond this, blood serves to regulate pH in various tissues, maintains body temperature, and prevent infections. Let's discuss its component of blood. Now, beginning in plasma, which is the sticky fluids made mostly of water, but also containing a variety of proteins, nutrients, ions, gases, and hormones. The most abundant plasma protein is called albumin, which significantly contributes to plasma's osmotic pressure, and it is followed by a variety of globulins, which binds for certain molecules for transports. Moving from the form elements is very erythrocytes, or red blood cells, leukocytes, or white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells and platelets are interesting. They don't possess a typical organelles, and they don't divide. They are replaced by stem cell in the bone marrow. Red blood cells are very numerous in the bloodstream, and they are shaped like flattened discs with depressed centers. There is no nucleus. Not much of is everything inside, other than lots of hemoglobin. This is the protein that allows the transport of oxygen throughout the bloodstream, which is picked up in the lungs and then released for tissue cells throughout the body. There are other proteins as well that have structural protective function, but hemoglobin will be the focus here. This is the structure of hemoglobin. It is made of protein called globulin, consisting the four polypeptides, 2 identical alpha chains and 2 identical beta chains, each of which is bound to a heme group with iron at the center. The iron in this heme is able to bind into an oxygen molecules in reversible fashion, so that it can bind and then release when necessary. So its hemoglobin combined 4 oxygen molecules, and there are around 250 million hemoglobins per red blood cells. So one red blood cell can transport 1 billion oxygen molecules. Blood cells produce through a process called hematopoiesis, and this occurs in the red bone marrow, which is soft network of connective tissue, found in certain blood capillaries, and which contain hematopoietic stem cells for erythrocytes. This is more specifically called erythropoiesis, and billions of new red blood cells are made every day to maintain a nearly constant number, given that red blood cells function properly for only about 3 months, only to be destroyed by macrophages, which are phagocytic type of white blood cells. Next, let's look at leukocytes, or the white blood cells, which unlike far from abundant red blood cells, are complete cells with nuclei and organelles, which part of immune system. This will help us understand that this will help us defend against pathogens and other harmful things. These use the circulatory system to get around the body. They can also slip out into other connective tissue to do their work. The heart is the muscle about the size of your fist. It lies behind into the left of your breastbone or sternum. The purpose of the heart is to pump blood through the blood vessels, arteries, and veins to all parts of your body. The inside of the heart is divided into four chambers. The top two chambers is called the atria and are collection of chambers for blood. The bottom two chambers are called the ventricle, where it is pumped to the lungs to receive oxygen. Once it receives oxygen, it flows to the left atrium and then to the left ventricle, where it's pumped to the aorta and rest of the body. On the right side of the heart, the tricuspid valve separates the right atrium and the right ventricle, allowing blood to enter the ventricle but not flow backwards to the atrium. Blood flows to the pulmonic valve to go to the lungs. On the left side of the heart, the mitral valves, the right atrium, and the left ventricle, blood flows the left ventricles to the aorta, through the aortic valve, and to the rest of the body. Arteries carried blood and oxygen and other nutrients throughout the body. Veins take blood to the heart, which pumps into the lungs to be oxygenated. The heart arteries, coronary arteries, provide oxygen and nutrients to the heart muscles. The right coronary artery supplies blood to the bottom and to the back of the heart. The left coronary artery splits into two vessels. One branch supplies to the front of the heart, the other branch delivers to the left side of the heart. An electric system transmits signals throughout the heart to control its pumping. The electrical signals starts in the sinoatrium or SA node, which is located in the upper portion of the right atrium, and it is known as a natural pacemaker of the heart. The electrical signals passes down to the lower chambers of the heart via the atrioventricle or AV node, which controls the signal so that the atria control before the ventricles. In the ventricles pathways carry the signal through the muscle so they contract at the same time to pump blood to the lungs and through the body. The three types of blood vessels. The goal of this lesson is to learn the three major functions of the blood vessel in the body. They're part of a circulatory system. They are arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries are fit the largest blood vessel. They have a thick outer layer made of connective tissue. They also made of smooth muscle and endothelium tissue. This thickness supports its purpose, which is to deliver highly pressurized oxygen-rich blood from the heart to far away parts of the body. It needs to be thicker to support that kind of demand. Next is the vein, which has a three layers of tissue, but the endothelium walls are thinner. Why it is thinner? because the pressure from the heart has lessened a great deal and put lower blood pressure, and by the time blood reached the veins, it lost its pressure and therefore actually has instead. These valves inside help catch blood as it may or may be fighting gravity so it can help continue moving back to the heart. Something else that helps in addition to these valves to help it travels back to the heart is nearby skeletal muscles, and skeletal muscles help the blood keep moving by contracting. At last but not the least, we have the smallest structure or the smallest blood vessel structure, the capillaries. Capillaries are important structures because it connects artery with veins. How they do this? Well, these tiny vessels web together and they meet where artery meets vein to exchange oxygen, nutrients, and waste for all body cells, either to coming in or out. And these vessels are so small that red blood vessels actually can move single file through them, and the walls only 1 cell thick. This makes sense, which easier to exchange materials in several parts of the body in every given moment. About 30% of your blood in circulation will be in your arteries, and about 5% will be in your capillaries, and the rest of 65% in your veins. So that's it. Hope you learned something from this video. Thank you for watching.